I don't know if you guys saw the clip that's going around now of this Fox interview that Trump did in 2004, last summer.
I just saw whatever clip you sent to me. In the Coops.
Well, he's doing this interview with Fox, and what we all saw on television is Rachel Campos Duffy, who's the Fox host, former Real World contestant, married to the transportation secretary now, Sean Duffy. She asked Trump about declassifying the Epstein files, and what everyone saw was Trump saying, yeah, I would. But turns out they edited the video, and the rest of his answer was played like much later on Will Cain's radio show. And his full answer was, well, yeah, that one's a little more complicated than the Kennedy files or January 6th, because, you don't want to tarnish people's reputation if they're just mentioned, a few times here and there that doesn't have to do with anything else. So that was last year that Trump said that. And then they just decided to edit it out, which I've been reliably told by Trump is a huge election hoax for a media outlet to edit an answer like that. So I'm sure a settlement with Fox will be forthcoming. But we'll see.
Do you think his base is going to just let this go?
No, I don't. I think there's kind of like a couple categories of people. Like, I think there are some folks who genuinely kind of fold into like the QAnon set of beliefs where they believe sincerely that there's kind of a cabal of evil, mostly Democrats, who are child abusers who run the world. Like, there's people who sincerely hold those views. There's also people who are just like, what, like you said you would do this. Like Pam Bondi in February promised us that she was reviewing the files. None of this makes sense. And now you're just insulting us. Yes. And I think like what's interesting about this scandal is it's like the Megyn Kelly types, like traditional Fox Republicans are mad. The Tucker Carlsons of the world are mad. And then Alex Jones is really mad. It's like it runs the gamut.
How do you guys handle when... I mean, I imagine you guys feel very comfortable being critical of your own party. Are you delicate about it? Do you feel like you have to be even more critical? Are you ever concerned that like you guys have so much influence that your critiques could sway voters away? Like, how do you hold your own party accountable is basically what I'm asking.
I mean, about a year ago after the debate between Biden and Trump, we sort of immediately after the debate said that it was fucking awful and that Biden should seriously think about whether he needs to stay in the race. And, we weren't too popular for a while. But like in that sense, look, there are some times where Democrats fuck up and like I agree with what they're trying to do, like the underlying policy behind it, right? And so when it's just about execution or like fucking something up here and there, then I'm more like, well, I agree with the goal. I agree with the policy outcome here. So I don't want to be like, I don't want to just be shitting on everything. But with something like the Biden debate performance, I was like, look, he either drops out of the race and we give ourselves a chance to beat Donald Trump, or we have Donald Trump as president again, which I didn't want. So, like, of course I'm going to criticize Biden.
How do you feel about the lack of primary? Sorry.
I mean, for a re-election, it's kind of standard. But look, I mean, I struggle with this one a little bit, right? Like, obviously, after the debate, it was self-evident that he was not up for a re-election or 4 more years. And saying as much was just like, it was stating what was obvious. What I struggle with was, to be honest with you, like before Biden ran in 2020, I felt like he was too old to be running at that point. I felt like I kind of, we're pretty critical of his campaign in Iowa and New Hampshire when he took like 4th and 5th place. And then he won South Carolina, won the nomination and won the presidency. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm just a fucking idiot and I don't know anything about politics and I'm wrong. And so then when he decides to run again in 2022, I was like, this doesn't feel right. All the data is telling us he's too old, but like clearly he had made the decision at that point. And so I was like, I don't know. Well, if I had to vote for one over the other, I would have ended up voting for Joe Biden because I agree with him on the issues. But now I think about it in hindsight and I was like, you know what, maybe I should have just been louder then. Like, I don't think they would have cared. They didn't give us an interview for 4 years because we were critical in that 2020 primary and they held a grudge. Oh yeah, they hated us.
They're not happy. I think on the primary issue, like I kind of blame the other Democrats who could have run but didn't, like, so
Like
people
Pete.
haven't talked. Yeah, like, look, you could, I mean, I get that when it's an incumbent president, it's rare to have a primary challenge in a presidential. It's also even rarer for that primary challenge to succeed. And if you run against Joe Biden and he ends up being the nominee and wins the presidency, and like, the party's not going to look at you kindly. So I get the calculation that goes into that. But ultimately, if Josh Shapiro or Gretchen Whitmer or Pete or any of those folks decided to primary Biden, they could have done it, and they chose not to. And they made a calculation about why that wasn't good for their careers or why they wouldn't be successful. And that's fine. But, like, they could have done it.
And I like Pete, but I assume you were working with Biden for 4 years, and you probably saw the cognitive decline well before that debate, and you still chose not to primary him, which is a little disappointing, I guess.
You make an interesting point about, like, if you support the underlying policy that you're trying to implement, even if you fail in the implementation, the idea behind it is right. And I think that that's like an issue for Trump right now, where he has a lot of people that are like concerned or disillusioned because a lot of the things that he was promising weren't really policies. Like, releasing the Epstein files isn't a policy. Ending foreign wars isn't a policy, right? Like, I guess reducing government spending, there are ways that you would attempt to do it, but maybe it didn't happen. But, like, some of these things are promises that are very difficult in execution. Like, it's almost like I don't really begrudge Trump not being able to convince Putin in one phone call to be like, I'll just give Ukraine back the Donbass region. Like, this is hard geopolitical diplomatic shit. And, so maybe there is a version of like over-promising and under-delivering, which no politician has ever done in history. But I just wonder, like, what a base does there, and then how can Democrats that feel like they actually can serve that base, not just bring over voters that are pissed, because I don't think those are like real. That's a real coalition. But like, actually, how can you serve these people? Because it feels like the Dem Party right now is a little bit fractured. There's like this new guard that's kind of rebellious and exciting, and it's gaining a lot of steam, and then it feels like the old guard is trying to do whatever they can to kind of consolidate power. Is that what you guys are seeing?
Yeah, I mean, look, the leadership of the party is really old. We have a real gerontocracy party real gerontocracy problem within the Democratic Party. I think the stat is the last 8 politicians to die in office were Democrats.
Yeah.
Right. So that's not good.
Cool record. Cool record.
We like, look, the two of us sitting here, we worked for Obama. We could tell you a lot about people feeling like you
Bring back
overpromised and
Obama, man.
underdelivered.
Can we just convince him to come back? Everybody loved him, even though they didn't. They did.
But like at the time, there were a lot of people who were very disappointed by him. They felt like he ran on being anti-war, right? And he ran on ending the war in Iraq, but he sent more troops to Afghanistan. There were a lot of drone strikes. There were a lot of controversial counterterrorism policies. There was Libya, Syria, like a million things, right? That people were understandably mad about. And I have a lot of sympathy for people who govern, because campaigning is a lot easier than governing. Governing's fucking hard. There's events that happen. You don't control them. Like the Arab Spring happens, and it just changed everything we did for 2 years in the Obama administration, and Benghazi happened, right? So there's just like cascading events. I do think though, like Trump is in a real, Trump has just flip-flopped on so many things. I mean, you guys talked about this. It was not just Epstein, it was the Iran strikes. I mean, today it sounds like he's going to send weapons to Ukraine again. So there's a lot of things roiling the base here.
And even with Israel specifically, it looked like he was taking a hard line with Bibi, and then I don't know if it was his ego, like he just couldn't let that mission that was so successful that they did go on without feeling like he was somewhat in control of it. I just don't understand the impulse. But it seemed like he gave away so much diplomatic currency by saying, I was actually negotiating with them, but I was with Israel the whole time. It's like, well, now anybody else you negotiate, what do you think they're thinking? They're wondering if they're going to get their fucking window blown open, right? Like,
Yep.
I think with Trump is he doesn't necessarily have an ideology. He has a bit. And the bit is he identifies something that people are pissed about.
Yes.
He tells them who's at fault for it. He then says, all right, I'm going to fix it. He tries to do something to fix it that may or may not work. And then he just claims victory anyway and hopes to move on to the next thing. And he doesn't really think about like the long-term consequences of what he promises or what he says, because he's just trying to win the news cycle, right? Like he's just trying to get to the next day, because that's how he thinks. He's a TV guy.
How can we get Democrats to do that more?
Well, I mean, like,
That shit feels good, guys. You know
It
what I
does
mean?
feel good. It does feel good. But then you get fucked when you actually get into office, and that's just what's happening with Trump now. You know, he makes promises to like two different groups of people, promises that are like opposed to each other. You can't possibly do both of them, and then you get into office and now you're fucked. Like end the war in Ukraine in a
Right.
day, or like I'm not going to add to the deficit, but I'm also going to extend tax cuts for like the richest Americans. Like you can't do both those things.
I mean, you
We
can
can
do
learn
the
from-
last thing you said, and we'll just look the other way. But listen, we're doing all right. It's a nice podcast, dude. Everything's fine. But yeah, the first thing is horrible. Okay, the first thing is disgusting. Yes.